All righty. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. You are just joining. You feel free and welcome to put where you're joining from in the chat so we can kind of get a sense of where you're coming from and how you're doing tonight. My name is Kaylin. I am the scholarships admin assistant for the American Indian College Fund. It is such a great pleasure for me to be able to talk to you tonight and answer any of your questions. Joining me is Daniel Souvet, our scholarships coordinator, who will be kind of helping us run the chat and answer questions that way. I do want to call attention to the end of this very short presentation will be all question focused. So don't feel like you have to type all your questions out right now in the chat. We'll have an option just in a couple minutes to answer all of your questions kind of live for everybody. If you've got a burning question, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. But if it's not burning and you want to have it answered in front of everybody, feel free to just kind of hold it for a couple minutes. I've only got a few slides here that go over some very basic scholarship information that we're going to cover, and then we will get down to your specific questions, because that's what tonight is all about. Last minute questions, because the deadline is looming. We have that priority deadline of May 31st coming up next week. And we do heavily encourage you to submit your application before that point. And without further ado, see, we've got some more people joining. Welcome. We will go ahead and get started. Okay. So this first slide covers our website. If you forgot how to get back onto your scholarship portal, go to collegefund.org or collegefund.org/scholarships to find all of our scholarship information and also the link to log into the student portal. All right. This next slide quickly covers scholarship eligibility. To be eligible for our scholarship programs, you need to be affiliated with a tribe, either through enrollment or descendant. There's two separate ways to prove your affiliation with a tribe. And just keep in mind that your tribe does need to be state or federally recognized. You do need to have at least a 2.0 cumulative GPA. Your cumulative GPA is an average of all of your semester GPAs. So it's a combination of all of your grade points put together to show us kind of a broad picture of your academic experience. You do need to already be or plan to be a full-time student at a nonprofit and accredited college in the United States. Full-time for undergraduates is 12 credits. Full-time for graduate students is 9 credits, and full-time for PhD students is 6 credits, all per semester. And the last thing to point out for you guys tonight, before we delve into some specific questions, is that we are a merit-based scholarship program. And so when you're thinking about how, problems you're running into with the scholarship application questions that are coming up about how you should answer a specific question, definitely be thinking about what it means to be answering questions for a merit-based scholarship program. If you're unfamiliar, there are two main types of scholarship programs. There's merit-based and then there's needs-based. A needs-based application is kind of similar to any kind of the federal funding that you might have filled out already. They're going to ask you a lot of questions about your income or your family's income because it's based on financial need. That's not what our application is like. That's not how our scholarship program runs. We are merit-based, meaning that we're interested in your goals, whether it be education goals, career goals, what you care about, and how that reflects back to Indian country at large. What you need to apply, some very basic documentation that you'll need before you get started or as you're moving through the application. First, you'll need a photo of yourself. And we've got in parentheses there, no selfies. And what we mean by that is it doesn't have to be a professional photo. It doesn't have to be a very serious photo, but it does need to be something that you are comfortable sharing with donors. Our scholarships are funded by individual donors and corporations. So when you apply for our scholarship, if you're selected as a scholarship recipient, your photo and the thank you letter within the application that you are going to write before you submit it, the application may be shared with the donor of your program. So what we want out of your photo is something that you're comfortable with being shared with a donor of your scholarship program. It doesn't need to be business attire. It can be traditional dress if you'd like, but we don't want any selfies. We don't want any filters, and we don't want any group photos, just because your donor won't be able to tell which one you are in the group photo. So just a picture of yourself. It can be against a plain wall and have a friend take it, or a family member take it, just a simple photo of yourself. The next item you would need to apply is your proof of tribal enrollment or descendancy. So like I said earlier, there's two ways to prove tribal affiliation. The first one is through enrollment. The second one is through descendants. If you're an enrolled tribal member with a state or federally recognized tribe, you likely have a tribal ID, a CIB or certificate of Indian blood, or some other kind of documentation on tribal letterhead stating your enrollment number, your name, your date of birth, the kind of traditional legal jargon that comes along with that. Any of those documents would work for proving enrollment. For proving that you are a descendant, the easiest way that we see students, and most common way that we see students prove descendants, is through a biological parent or grandparent. We do kind of cap it at 2 generations, and we do want to see a paper trail or proof that links you to that person and their tribal enrollment. So if your mom or dad or your grandma or grandpa was an enrolled tribal member, what we want to see is documentation that links you to them through birth certificates. So if it's your mom who was a tribal member, we would want to see your birth certificate that lists her as your mother, and then her tribal ID or tribal enrollment information, so that we can prove that you are a descendant of that tribe and someone who was enrolled in that tribe. So documentation of that sort is going to be asked for in the contact profile step. And then the last bit of documentation you would need is your transcript. We do not require an official copy of your transcript. Please don't buy or pay for an official copy of your transcripts, and please upload them within the application. We cannot accept them via email or mail, by physical mail, unless it's absolutely necessary. There's some kind of technical glitch happening. So you will need an unofficial transcript, because that's what shows your cumulative GPA and how we verify that information. The last real quick thing I want to cover before we open it up to all of your questions is the reflection questions in the application. We are a merit-based scholarship program, like I was talking about earlier, which means we really care about you and how you express yourself. These 3 questions are within the scholarship application. You will have to answer them with a minimum of 100 words and a maximum of 300 words. So it's like a very short essay, or a well filled out paragraph. But we are looking for you to express yourself in as much detail as you're comfortable with, so that our reviewers can get to know you, your education goals and your career goals, and kind of discern where you're at and how this scholarship would benefit you or affect your life. So those questions: what challenges have you overcome to attend college? What are your educational and career goals? I'm noticing there's a typo in that one, sorry. And how will completing your education impact the Native community? So these 3 questions, like I said, minimum of 100 word, maximum of 300 words. And this is the highest scoring section of the application. That's a little insider tip right there. So we do recommend that students take their time on this section, really think through the answer and how it will be read by the reviewers of our applications. And also another little tip or trick for this section is to complete it in a Word document or a text editor before you copy and paste it into the application, because our application portal does not have spell check. So we do encourage students to complete these reflection questions in kind of another document and copy and paste them into the application. All right. Lastly, the whole point of tonight is to answer your specific questions. We can do that in 2 ways. You can type your question into the chat, or you can send a text through Mentimeter. There's a code at the top of the screen to be able to text your questions, and they will appear here before me, and so that we can answer them for everyone, because your question is probably the question that somebody else has too, and so it's really good for the whole group to be able to answer them out loud tonight. So without further ado, I'll give you a second to type in that code into mentimeter.com and ask your questions via text. And it looks like there might be some in the chat as well. So I'll pull that up over here. And so that website is menti.com, and the code is at the top of the screen. And so we will start to see your questions here. Oh, went one too far, hold on. All right, and so when you ask questions, they will appear here. Awesome. Looks like we've got our first one. Does priority for these scholarships go to students attending tribal colleges? That's a great question. So we do two main types of scholarships. We've got the Full Circle Scholarship Program and our Tribal College and University Scholarship Program. Both of these scholarship programs use the same application. So it's one application. If you're a student attending a tribal college, you will be eligible for both scholarship programs. If you're a student attending what we call a mainstream college, like a state college, community college, any kind of nonprofit accredited college, even private schools, trade schools, that kind of thing, you will be eligible for the Full Circle Scholarship Program. So in looking at the numbers, there are more tribal college students that are awarded our scholarships, but that's because we have that separate scholarship program that caters specifically to the 35 accredited tribal colleges within the United States. So that's a great question. But as far as priority when reviewing scholarship applications, no, everybody's kind of got a fair shot there. What if you don't have an updated transcript before the deadline? I just finished my first semester of grad school. My last transcript is from 12 years ago. Wow, congratulations on grad school. This is a great question. What I would recommend is that you go ahead and apply with the documentation that you have. And so that if that is the transcript from 12 years ago, that's okay. If you have an idea of your cumulative GPA from this last semester, use that in the application and the documentation from 12 years ago. What will happen is if you are selected for a scholarship using your, your current GPA or the GPA you think you have right now, what will happen is in the fall, if you're selected for a scholarship, we will go through a process called enrollment verification, where we will ask you for an updated transcript and your class schedule. And we ask for those two documents because we want to, one, make sure your GPA is what you said it was, and two, make sure you're actually enrolled at the school you said you were. So we make sure to send the funds to the correct institution. So for now, for the application for that priority deadline of May 31st, go ahead and use the transcript from 12 years ago and the GPA you think you have from your first semester of grad school. And then if you're awarded, we will come back to you and ask for updated information. Thank you for that question. All right, next question. What if you decide to change career paths in the middle of the scholarship? Would the scholarship still work? Great question. So if you've got a major or program in mind and you put that in your scholarship application, we will do awarding based on what you've put in your scholarship application. If you're awarded in one of our programs that require you to be in a STEM field, for example, or maybe one of the arts fields, we've got some broad major categories for our scholarships. If you change from STEM to arts, for example, and you were awarded in a STEM focused scholarship program, what we would try to do halfway through the year for the spring semester, and you let us know that you've changed majors, we would try to fit you into a different scholarship program that better suits your major. And so that would be the process of replacement. And Daniel actually works very closely with that. And so it would be a conversation between us and trying to find a new scholarship program for you that fits your major. Throughout the year, technically have to tell us if you switch majors, but then when you do reapply next year to be eligible for renewal, if you were awarded the previous year, we would want updated academic information with your new major. All right, I am still a high school student. What time would you recommend applying? If you are a senior in high school planning to attend college in the fall of 2023, I highly recommend that you apply right now, because this scholarship for the priority deadline of May 31st will be good for the fall of 2023 and the spring of 2024. So if you're a high school senior and you're planning to attend college in the fall of 2023, I recommend you apply right now. If you are not a senior, maybe you're a junior or a sophomore, I recommend that you apply in the spring of your senior year. Our scholarship application opens February 1st each year and has the same priority deadline each year of May 31st. So if you're a sophomore or a junior and you're already thinking about scholarships, that's great. But definitely would wait until you're a senior, the spring of your senior year, to apply. All right, next question. I noticed my answers from last year are present in the 2023-2024 scholarship application. Why is that? Should I start over and add to those original answers? Thanks. Great question. So at the American Indian College Fund, we are always trying to remove barriers from students applying for financial aid. Specifically our financial aid, because that's what we control. We would love to remove many other barriers for students, but we do what we can control. Part of that process is making it easier for students who have applied previously to reapply. So if you are a student that applied with us for the 2022 to 2023 academic year, so the academic year that just ended, what we have done is carry over some of your questions, some of your responses rather, from the last application to this current application. You didn't do anything wrong. That's us trying to make your life a little easier. If you no longer feel like those responses reflect you personally, your journey, your education or career goals, please feel free to redo them completely, edit them a little bit, or edit them none. What I will say is there will be some text above the reflection questions. So if you're a returning student and you log in and you click on your 2023-2024 application and you see that your reflection questions were carried over from your previous application, pause right there and read the text above the reflection questions. There's going to be one of two messages. If you were not awarded last year, there will be a message about revising your answers so that you can be rescored. Excuse me. Sneeze. Sorry about that. So there'll be one message that says, you weren't awarded last year. Think about revising your responses. If you were awarded last year, there will be a message that says there's no need to edit your reflection questions unless they no longer reflect you. So kind of choose your own adventure there based on what the message above the reflection question says, and edit as you feel like you need in order for the reviewers, us, the donors, to kind of get a good sense of where you're at. For those of you that are new applicants and you are just doing this for the first time, your reflection questions will be blank because you haven't applied previously and you'll be starting fresh. But all students, whether they've applied previously or applying for the first time, have to provide updated academic information every single year. And all students, even previously awarded students, have to reapply each year. That's a great question. I'm not seeing any more come through on my end. Daniel, are there any in the chat that you'd like to read out, or maybe actually here came one, sorry.
Yeah, there were some good questions here. So just a few, I'll read them out in case people aren't seeing them in the chat. There was one person who you might have covered. I was answering these questions while you were answering the other one, so I'm not sure if I heard them all, but we can go over them again just in case anyone missed it. There was going to be a senior in 23-24 wondering when they should apply, and I let them know February 1st. For each year, whenever the fall is that you're going to apply, you want to apply between February 1st and May 31st. So the application for fall of 24, if you're starting school, would be February 1st of that year of 24. Somebody else asked how much money is usually awarded. And so I let them know scholarships range from $1,000 up to $20,000 per year. but the average award is between about $2,500 to $3,000 per year, or even I think it's even maybe right around there, maybe a bit higher actually.
A little higher now.
Yeah. So I think it's probably closer to three to 5,000, I would say. More information and a link to our scholarship application can be found at our website, collegefund.org/scholarships. Somebody did ask about Grand Canyon University, which is has been a challenge for the last few years because they were for-profit school and then they switched to a nonprofit status. But our general guideline was with the Department of Education, and so whatever I think there was some hold up there with them trying to switch back to a nonprofit status. So it's still kind of held up in some court cases around that.
Unfortunately, yes.
But for-profit schools are not eligible for our scholarship programs. So unfortunately, that we had some students that we had been funding at Grand Canyon University that we kind of had to over time let them know that we're not going to be able to continue funding scholarships there until that gets sorted out. If they're able to move back to nonprofit status, great. We'd love to fund your education. Another person asked an interesting question that I had to think about because I hadn't actually come across it before. Okay. So this person, Jennifer, has 5 children. So basically they're asking about a stepchild, right? So will a stepchild
This one's up on the
be
screen
eligible
too.
to apply as a descendant, right? So basically the answer is that if a student is not tribally enrolled, we do go by biological descent. It's one of those things where it's like, I mean, I understand this, this is your child. I'm sure that you're raising them in to know your culture and be a part of that. But just, that's one of those struggles where it's like, sometimes we have students who are adopted out and don't have the record of their biological parents and all that. And so those are the challenges that unfortunately, we kind of have those structures in place that we do look for either tribal enrollment, and so that can go whatever your tribe does to determine tribal enrollment. That's not something that we are looking at, or for that descent, either a parent or biological parent or grandparent who's enrolled.
Right. I think that was a really good way to respond to that, Daniel. And I just want to add that the tribal affiliation requirement of our scholarship is not meant to be a barrier to students. Rather, it's meant to protect the funding and reserve it for students that are Native. At the American Indian College Fund, we don't want to be the ones that are making the call of, are you Native? We want your tribe to make that call. And that is part of the way that we give sovereignty back to our tribes. So basically what we're looking for is affiliation with that tribe. If the tribe recognizes you as an enrolled member or as a descendant within 2 generations, then that is all we need. We're not looking for blood quantums or percentages or any of that kind of that part of the documentation that sometimes comes along with it, depending on your tribe. So yeah, I agree. In the case of a stepchild, we are looking for biological a descent or proof of biological descent. So that's a really hard case. I do see another question regarding a sister that was adopted out from Alaska, and she is not enrolled, but she believes her birth mother was enrolled. The answer to that question, because it is a biological connection, would be yes, that student would be eligible for our scholarships, as long as they could provide documentation for that connection. The best resources I could give for that is to reach out to the tribe specifically, and with as much information as you have to see what kind of information they have. If anybody has more questions about tribal affiliation, please feel free to ask those. I did see one other question come in that I wanted to get to before I forgot. So a student asked, is the money awarded determined by your GPA? And your GPA is a factor, but I would love to kind of go into an explanation of how applications are scored to answer that question more fully. So in your application, we ask you academic information, we ask you reflection questions, and we ask you for extracurriculars and honors and distinctions. So the main kind of sections of the application, other than the tribal affiliation and your contact information. So when a student submits their application by the priority deadline, so by May 31st, what will happen to that application is it gets submitted to us. We get, like kind of notified that it's here. And then it goes into the review process. Each application that's submitted by May 31st will receive 3 separate reviews by reviewers that we hire, who all either work in Native higher ed, are Native themselves, are some way related to higher education and understand what we're looking for. All of our reviewers are compensated, and they are also trained on how to review these applications based on a rubric we have created. I say that so you know that myself and Daniel are not reviewing your applications. We can't change your outcome of your application score. And I also want you to know that the people that are looking at your applications and reviewing them are well trained and want to be doing this. So each application submitted by May 31st will receive 3 reviews. What we do then is take the average of those 3 reviews, and that becomes your final application score. We then rank the applications highest to lowest based on their final score and begin the scholarship matching process. So connecting the students with scholarships they're eligible for based on highest score to lowest score. And we basically do that process as exhaustive as we can until we run out of money to give. Unfortunately, that does happen every year. As a competitive scholarship program, we do get more applications than we do have scholarship opportunities. And that is an unfortunate thing that we are constantly working to create more opportunities. Our donor services team is constantly trying to get more donors so we can offer more scholarships, but it's an uphill battle for sure. But that's just a little bit about the process of what happens to your application once you submit it. Now, as far as how the reviewers are assigning a score to your application, each section of the application is kind of is broken down in a rubric that we give to the reviewers. And it is weighted in a way that we feel is ethical and meaningful to the student. So the reflection question section, those 3 short essay questions, that is the highest weighted or highest scoring section of the application, followed by your extracurriculars, because those share with us what you're involved in and what you care about, how you spend your time outside of the classroom. And then the next highest weighted section is that GPA or academic achievement section. I share that not to discourage anyone, but I also want to let you know, kind of be very transparent about how things are reviewed. What that means for you, if you have a really high GPA, that's awesome. That's definitely going to help you. If you don't have the best GPA, it definitely means that that's not the worst thing in the world. Spend a lot of time on your reflection questions, really think through them. And then also we encourage every student, whether you have the best GPA in the world or the worst GPA, to think outside the box when it comes to extracurriculars. You'll notice our instructions on the extracurricular section are really expansive. Maybe you're not a traditional college student. Maybe you're not 19 and part of the band or the football team or the chess club or an Eagle Scout. Maybe you don't have those traditional, extracurriculars. What we do at the American Indian College Fund to kind of level the playing field for everyone is we think outside the box when it comes to what an extracurricular is. We define it as how you spend your time outside of the classroom. So anything that you do outside of the classroom, volunteer work, community work, groups that you're involved in, maybe that you have leadership roles in. If you have a full-time job or part-time job, that counts as an extracurricular. Put that in there. If you have a family, you've got children at home, you've got family duties, or you are a caretaker for, a family member, whether it's a parent, grandparent, child, that is an extracurricular to us. Put that in your application. Everything that you can add in that section is going to help you. So hopefully that helped answer your question, probably a little more information than you wanted, but maybe it helped answer some other questions too. All right, I've seen a couple more come in. For those enrolled in a federally recognized tribe, can we submit a tribal ID, or does it need to be your BIA 4432 form? So tribal ID is fine. We also accept expired tribal IDs. We're just looking for proof of the affiliation with the tribe. We just want it to have your name, your date of birth, and your tribe's name and your enrollment number, ideally. But a tribal ID sometimes doesn't include the enrollment number, so that's okay. But what we're looking for is that the date of birth matches what you put in the application and your full name. Next question that came in, I'm an anthropology major and geology minor. Would I register under social science category or STEM or both? So you're asking, so as far as like the broad category of your major, anthropology, I think, is typically considered in the arts because it's so related to history. Unfortunately, and as a history person myself, I think it's more of a science, but what I would do in that case is not fret, because different scholarship programs define STEM really broadly and differently. And then also we do have scholarship programs that cater more towards the art side of things or have no major requirement at all. Many of our scholarship programs have no requirements on what major you have to be awarded within them. So I wouldn't fret about where you kind of fall in those lines, and just be true to yourself and put your real major or your real program in the scholarship application. Great question.
Somebody asked in the chat, when will award notifications occur? So that's going to be end of July. And usually it is all the way at the end. We need all that time to, get those scores back get all the applications scored, get the scores back, and then award each program. So we have to go through each program, look at the criteria, match it up to the highest scoring individuals within those, and then check those, the tribal IDs and check, transcripts, and just make sure everything looks like it lines up with what you put in your application, which it should. And then we'll, once we make all those awards in all those programs, then we'll send out all those at the end of July, and usually at the very end of July. So that's that. I had one other question about transcripts. So somebody said my high school student final transcript from graduation is a few weeks away. We'll submit the current transcript, but can or does that need to be updated later? Like you said, submit the current transcript. If you're awarded, then we will just reach out and ask for an updated transcript when we're verifying your GPA and your enrollment for the fall. So no need to send the updated one until after you're awarded. What applications are we talking about? Asks Rose. So most of what we're talking about specifically has been geared toward full circle scholarships. Your scholarship application is going to apply for both our TCU program if you're at a tribal college. So if you're at a tribal college, there's some of the eligibility requirements are different. We have so if you're at a tribal college, we have awards that are set aside that can be awarded to non-native students. We have scholarships that can go to students under a 2.0 GPA. Basically, for the TCU program, the main criteria is be enrolled at a TCU. There's ones that you don't have to be full-time for. So a lot of those ones that apply for the full circle scholarship don't necessarily apply for the TCU scholarships. We really leave it more up to the tribal colleges to make those decisions. So we put as few criteria on those as possible. But but one application applies you for both of those kind of portfolios of scholarships.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to reiterate what Daniel was saying, if you are not at a tribal college, or a TCU is what he was referring to it as, it's just the same application based on what you put in your application, such as the school of attendance, the major, the GPA, your reflection questions. We're going to match you to scholarships that we have available that you're eligible for. So if you are attending a tribal college, that's when we would determine, based on the school you report in your application, that's how we would determine if you're eligible for a tribal college scholarship or what we call a TCU scholarship. So if you're not at a tribal college, don't worry about that. You're still eligible for the Full Circle Scholarship. And it's just the same application. We just try to make it as easy as possible by funneling everybody through the same application.
And that student followed up saying that they are going to SIPI, the Southwestern
Indian Polytechnic Institute.
Indian Polytechnic Institute. Yeah, that's like a mouthful, but they're part-time attending early childhood programs. So I was just typing in there, letting them know, like, yeah, if you're part-time at a TCU, which SIPI is one, then you are eligible for a TCU scholarship as a part-time student at a TCU. So and we actually have a scholarship that is specifically to support part-time students, because we noticed that was one group. We try to figure out, okay, who are we missing? Who can we support that is not currently being supported? Part-time students, we discovered, fell into that category. So there is a scholarship specifically for. There's one specifically for first-year students. There's a lot of different scholarships that really kind of segment out different student groups. So you might think, oh, I'm not that qualified and I'm not going to apply. You don't know, a lot of our donors really are looking for some very specific criteria. And so there's people who might not expect to get awarded that do get awarded. That's kind of the flip side of the fact that a lot of very qualified students don't get awarded just because of how many people apply versus how many scholarships are available. On the flip side, there are some of those scholarships that are so specific in terms of what they look for that people get awarded. So sorry, Rose is following up here. How do I get an application? Do I still have time to apply? May I get one sent to me? They are all online. We don't have any paper applications. If you go to collegefund.org/scholarships, you'll see a link that says apply now. That's where you need to get to. You do need, and so do I still have time to apply? Yes, you have a few more days here. May 31st is the last day to apply. So yeah, that's where the application is, and you have a few days left here to apply.
Yeah, it's a week from today at midnight, and we highly recommend that you apply well before that, just in case you run into technical issues or you have questions about the application. We always see a really big jump in our application numbers right there at the end, and that makes sense. I'm the kind of person that sets a million reminders and then I don't do it until I absolutely have to. I get it. But if you are anticipating having technical issues, you're not comfortable with a computer, you're not comfortable with scholarship applications, or you've never done them before, or you anticipate having questions for our team, we're humans. We work, 9 to 5, or in our case, 8 to 4:30. On Mountain Standard Time. So we're in the office as much as we can, and we are here for you. But as we receive that higher call volume, higher influx of applications and questions that come along with them, it's going to take a little bit longer for us to get back to you. Just know that we're trying our absolute best. You can text us, you can email us, you can call us. Daniel, I don't know if you've already put our contact info in the chat, but that would be great. Daniel can also put a link to the application portal in the chat as well. Sorry, I'm giving you a lot to do, Daniel.
No, that's great.
But definitely feel free to reach out to us as early as you can before the deadline with your questions, so that we can spend time with you and make sure that we answer your questions fully. Okay, I haven't seen any other questions come across the Mentimeter. If you have a question that you're not comfortable asking in front of the group, you don't want it to be read out loud, that's totally okay. Daniel's going to put our contact info in the chat. Reach out to us tomorrow, before the end of the week or early next week with your question. If it's something more specific to your situation or private for some reason. I will mention, we, in previous events that we've had that are similar to this, we have had several questions about one specific question on our application, which has to do with boarding schools. I do want to address that question and let you know that it is up to you whether you decide to answer it or not. We have one scholarship program, and I guess it might be slightly confusing. Daniel and I have both kind of alluded to it. We have many scholarship programs that are all provided by individual donors and corporations. So for example, Ford trucks or Coca-Cola or even the TikTok company. They're all sponsors, and they sponsor individual scholarship programs for scholars that we award each year. Those donors set their criteria, and they're slightly different for each program, which is why we do that matching process that I was talking about earlier. Where I was going with that is, well, now I can't remember where I was going with that. All that is to say that, if you're selected for an award, it will be in an individual program, which might be kind of confusing because you're like, wait, I thought this was for the Full Circle or the TCU. Those are kind of like the umbrella terms or umbrella programs for those smaller scholarship applications or smaller programs, scholarship programs. And don't be confused by that, and know that you can't apply for them individually. You'll be considered for the ones that you're eligible for based on what you put in your application. And I think there might be more questions coming through in the chat as well. Or maybe it's just Daniel.
Oh, that's me, yeah, putting all that information.
Okay, yeah, great.
Yeah. I think we covered that. I think we got to all these questions. Let me just.
We did, yeah. Definitely feel free to reach out, guys. Share this information with your family and friends. The application closes, like I said, midnight. Well, it's a priority deadline of midnight, May 31st. Technically the application remains open after that, but you're much less likely to be awarded in both programs if you apply after May 31st.
What time zone? Mountain time zone.
Yes. So we are based in Denver, Colorado, but we serve students nationally in every state at any kind of school, as long as it's nonprofit and accredited. Like Daniel talked about, if you've got questions about whether your school is nonprofit, or if you're thinking about trade school, beauty school, getting a certificate for or a licensure for something, and you're not sure if your school is accredited or nonprofit, we do use the National Center for Education Statistics. That's a mouthful. If you Google the tool College Navigator, that is how we determine whether a school is nonprofit and accredited. Most, 35 tribal colleges, most community colleges, private schools, state schools, that kind of thing, those are all nonprofit and accredited. So no fear about that.
So I just put the link to College Navigator in the chat there. If you click on that, you'll see at the top, toward the left or the top, it'll say name of school. If you just type your name of the school there, it'll show you if it's for-profit, nonprofit, public, private, any of that information. It's actually really interesting, and actually show you if there's accreditation down there. So it's like it'll show you a lot of information about your school that you might not even know.
Yeah, definitely interesting information. I did remember I wanted to circle back, sorry, to the Native American boarding school healing scholarship. Yeah. That's where I was going with that earlier. There it is. So there's one specific question in our application about if you are the descendant of a boarding school survivor. The boarding school program in the United States was a devastating program that affected thousands of Native families, separating families, altering cultural customs. That's the most, blanket way I could describe it, but just awful, horrific things happening. We're not asking that question to have you relive your family's trauma. We're asking that question because we have one scholarship that wants to benefit boarding school survivors and their descendants. That question doesn't have to be answered. If you don't feel like responding to that question, even if you know you are a descendant of a boarding school survivor, just click no. All that's going to do to your scholarship eligibility is take you out of the running for that one scholarship program out of the about 200 scholarship programs, separate 200 donors that we have in our Full Circle portfolio or program. So that question comes up a lot for students as kind of I'm not sure if I want to answer it, and it's okay. You don't have to answer it. If you were not the descendant of a boarding school survivor, obviously you would check no anyways. But if you do know that your family has that in as part of their story, you can decide for yourself whether you choose to share. It's totally up to you. And it's also up to you how in depth you go. So we're really sensitive to that question and know that it's asking a lot of students. So sorry about me losing my train of thought earlier. I haven't seen any other, oh wait, I do see one other question. Sorry about that. A student wants to know, so I can go to a college that isn't a tribal tribal college, and the scholarship will still count. Yes. So we serve students at all types of schools, as long as it's nonprofit and accredited, like we were saying. You do not have to go to a tribal college or university to receive our scholarship. The Full Circle Scholarship Programs is specifically for students that are going through and can serve students that are going to what we call mainstream schools, or private universities, state schools, community colleges, any kind of university or college in the United States that is nonprofit and accredited. And that tool that Daniel linked in the chat, College Navigator tool, can help you determine if your school is nonprofit and accredited. Basically, if it doesn't say for profit next to its name in College Navigator, you're good to go. All right. Daniel, are you seeing anything else in the chat, or is there anything that you think I might have missed?
I don't see any other questions. I had a question that I think came in through an email, so I don't think it was here, but it was just on my mind because I just answered an email about Canadian First Nations. We do have, if you're eligible to come to school in the U.S. via the Jay Treaty, and you can look up the Jay Treaty. If you are eligible for the Jay Treaty, you probably know what it is. But that also allows some First Nations from Canadian students to come. If they're studying, they still have to be studying in the U.S.
Yes.
At a U.S. school. And the other thing that made me think of is for those students who might be studying abroad, if your financial aid still goes through your U.S. based institution, that you're also eligible, but you do have to be enrolled at a U.S. based school, but then going through a study abroad program outside of the U.S. That's kind of the one kind of exception of that you could be the case for you. So I just wanted to mention that.
Great thought. Yeah, there's all these kind of specific cases.
Yes,
so
whenever
if you are a specific case, reach out to us. We're happy to kind of look into it.
And the other thing that made me think of is I talked to another student who had trouble uploading documents to our application today. So get into your application as soon as you can, just in case something comes up, that you can reach out to us and we can work with you to get your application done. Like I think that's the main thing is if you wait to the last day, then we're going to be inundated and we might not be able to help you, and that would be a shame if you missed out. So
yeah, and we want to, and it's going to be us who help you. We're a smaller team, the scholarships team, and the number that Daniel put in the chat is our call queue, or our call line for the scholarships department specifically. Myself and Daniel are in that call queue. So if you call that line, you're probably going to get one of us. We're not scary. You can ask us anything. You can say, I can't log into my account, or I'm having issues with XYZ, and we're here to help. But do give us a couple days before the deadline to be able to give you the time you deserve.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Nothing else has come in. For those of you that are still on the call, if you are, in your application right now, feel free to pull up your application and look through it and see if any other questions jog for you. Otherwise, we are available at the number and email that Daniel provided, and are happy to help. I hope that this session was helpful in answering any of your questions, making things more specific. If you have feedback about the application or our website, feel free to let us know. We're always kind of open to suggestions and try to take feedback seriously. If you are a currently awarded scholar and you are looking at that renewal process, I guess that's something to mention for those of you that are not current scholars or not returning applicants. If you are awarded within the Full Circle Scholarship Program, you are eligible to be renewed each year in your scholarship program at the same or similar funding amounts. As long as you continue to meet the criteria and reapply every single year. So definitely some incentive to get your application in before May 31st so you can be considered for that full circle program and maybe the TCU as well if you're a tribal college student, but if you're not, that full circle scholarship program, because if you are awarded within it, you can be renewed. If you're a currently awarded student and you're looking at a renewal process and you're wondering extra steps, or maybe you're asking if you've completed all of your scholarship components, definitely reach out, send us an email, or reach out to your scholarship program coach too.
All right. Rose is saying she's going to get to her application right this minute. I love to hear it.
Wonderful.
And yeah, as those questions come up, send us an email, send us a call, give us a call, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I do also want to mention that there's some great resources on our website. We gave you some kind of insider information tonight about how the application is scored and what we recommend you do for answering certain questions. However, if you can't remember what we said or you need further clarification, from our scholarships homepage, so from collegefund.org/scholarships, there are a couple different links that I would recommend to you. The first one is called Application Tips. You can find it on the left-hand side of the scholarships homepage. And that is going to share with you tips and tricks for answering the questions, similar to what we covered tonight, as well as for some insight for how the application is scored. The second link that you're going to find there is called Application FAQs, or Frequently Asked Questions. It's going to cover a lot of the questions we covered tonight, so great job, guys. But if you can't remember what we said or you need specific information, definitely visit that. It goes over what kind of school you need to be attending, what kind of documentation you need, all of those things. The last resource I'd love to share with you is at the bottom of our scholarships page. If you are like I was in college and you're looking for every scholarship available to you, we do have a list of other scholarship programs we recommend to our students. Now, don't let that distract you from our application. Finish our application by May 31st. But at the bottom of the scholarships page, there is a link called Additional Scholarships, and that's going to take you to a list that we curate of other scholarship programs that seek to serve Native students. They're keyword searchable, and there's also some larger resources lists or links in that page as well. But if you're looking for other scholarship programs to apply to outside of the American Indian College Fund, that's a great resource for you. I can't guarantee that all of those scholarship programs are still open since we don't manage them. Their deadlines may have passed already for this application session or season, but definitely worth checking out if you're still looking for other scholarships to apply to.
Ooh, another question, good question.
Okay.
Since there are over 200 scholarships, can you win more than one scholarship? We really try to award at least one full circle scholarship to a student. There have been occasions when, like I mentioned, that very specific criteria, a student has gotten awarded more than one scholarship, but that's very, very rare. We do our very best not to award, just so that more students have opportunity to be awarded, exactly. Right? You can, if you are at a TCU, you can be awarded a full circle scholarship and a TCU scholarship if you're at a tribal college. But for full circle, we do try, and for the vast majority of people, it'll be one scholarship. And then how many scholarship applications do you normally receive per year? We were just trying to make our predictions for how many we would get this year, but I think by May 31st, we got
about 8,000 applications by May 31st last year. And we are trending slightly higher than that now. So definitely recommend that you heed what we've said tonight. Look at those application tips on our website and fill the application out as thoroughly as you can. Everything you can add in there can help you with your score.
Yes, and so I mean, I think like we've said, given the numbers of how many applications we get and how many scholarships are available, there are going to be very qualified students who don't get this scholarship. That's why we encourage you to apply for as many other scholarships as you can, just because different scholarships have different criteria, and we want you to get funded one way or another. You know, even if you're not able to get a scholarship from us, hopefully you can find some funding elsewhere. But that's it. I mean, that's, so August is a lot of kind of fielding emails and calls from students who weren't awarded and wonder what they can do better. And the one thing I usually tell people is to look at those essays, but the thing is, it's really just a numbers game in terms of, we just can't award everyone who deserves one, really.
Yeah, we wish we could. We really wish we could.
Yeah, so that's why we have a whole team of people who are working with our donors to try to expand the number and amount of scholarships that we have, so that we can offer. So yeah, we're working on it. We're doing our best.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. I hope this was helpful, and I hope it, maybe made the process seem more accessible, at least the application process. I don't want you to be daunted by the numbers. It's a competitive scholarship program, but like Daniel said, you never know, because the donors some donors are looking for, a very broad, just student. I want to fund a student. And then some donors are looking for a very specific student, like a single parent. And so you just never know. And I do encourage students to apply, because you just never know if you're going to get awarded or not. We're doing our best, and I do hope that you'll reach out if more questions arise for you as you complete the application. I want to note that when you complete the application, the system is supposed to send you an email saying that your application has been submitted, and the actual application portal will change once you hit that big green submit button. And you have to hit this green submit button. You can't just mark it complete. You have to hit the green submit button in order for it to come to us. Once you hit the green submit button, the message next to it, to the left of the submit button in the application portal, is going to change. It's going to tell you your application was submitted, and give you a little bit of a message from our scholarships team. So if you're looking for ways to just absolutely know that your application was submitted, that's probably the best indicator that I can give you, is that you've clicked the green submit button and the message in your student portal to the left of the green submit button has changed to scholarship submitted. And then you will see that your application card will say under review as it moves through that review process. You can always come back to your scholarship portal to view the information that you've put in the scholarship application, but you cannot edit it once it's been submitted. So if your school of attendance changes or something vital like that to awarding, please let us know via email, and we can help you with that. But all that is to say, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like we are out of time, but I really appreciate your thoughtful questions. They always keep us thinking about how we can do better and explain information better on our website and on our application portal. We wish you guys the best of luck filling out the application and also with your education journeys. Thank you so much, Daniel, for running the chat and helping me out here tonight. And we hope you guys all have a lovely evening. Bye, everybody.